The first thing I want to say about Mercury retrograde is that you should not be afraid of it. I don't like the messaging and the fear mongering around Mercury retrograde, and it's true. Let's talk about why it makes sense a little bit. Mercury is the planet that rules our intellect, our mind, communication, the exchange of ideas, contracts, business, commerce. It also rules short distance travel. That means things like the quick trip that you plan for the weekend. That means your daily commute, even if you take a train or bike. These things are all Mercury ruled. It also rules our community. It rules siblings, neighbors, and education. Writing, media projects, these sorts of things are all Mercury ruled themes. And so it makes sense that when it goes retrograde in the sky, huge, important, prominent themes of our lives, work, business, even just the way we feel and think, is subject to change. But I like to take the perspective that the universe is always working out for you, and what you believe you manifest. So if you are expecting an experience that will be wrought with chaos and a challenge and things that aren't ultimately going to benefit you and just going to cause problem and frustration, that's exactly what you're going to get. Now, I'm not taking the spiritual bypassing route. I'm not taking the toxic positivity route where we would expect that nothing negative could ever happen. But negative is all in how you perceive it, right? So I think the purpose of Mercury retrograde sort of lies in the 3 R's. Revise, revisit, reflect. This is a time when our mental processes can become very inwardly focused, and we review the past. We change our minds. New information causes us to maybe feel confused, think about things in a new way. We might feel struggle and challenge to sort of put out new ideas or new creative projects. Maybe our writing seems like it's not as clear as it normally is. And there's a purpose in all of this, right? The Mercury retrograde in this case would be an opportunity to make sure that you really understand what's going on in your head and heart, to understand that your beliefs are aligned with your integrity, and that your values and what you say and what you do and what you write and how you engage with your community is in alignment. It's an opportunity to take a pause and reflect. Business deals, they can fall through. It can be hard to get people to agree on a time. Contracts for a job or for a house change. And so that's why astrologers commonly say it's not a good time during a Mercury retrograde period to initiate projects that are new, that you haven't been planning on for a long time, that involve the signing of a contract. Mercury governs contracts. So it's often the case that when you make a business deal or sign up for a job or sign up for a lease on a house or sign on the dotted line for anything really, that if you do it in a Mercury retrograde period, there's something you're not fully seeing. And those things can come back around and manifest several months later by the time we get to the next Mercury retrograde. So even if you don't see it in the moment, it's like you have to pay special attention to the fine print. And that's why astrologers usually advise that if you have things to do of that nature, that you wait. Those things can fall through. And so if you're someone who, let's say you're a real estate agent and much of your job, it has to do with contracts and getting deals to close, or you're applying for a new job and Mercury retrograde hits and falls through, or it's delayed and it's taking longer than it was expecting it to, or they've got to rewrite the terms and conditions, they have to rewrite the clauses for your contract, they have to change something about it, right? And things seem to be hitting delay. There's always opportunity in this. It's a matter of shifting your perspective, right? So if you're thinking, I just need to force this deal to go through, I really need this money right now, I really need this deal right now, I really need this job right now, it needs to look exactly like I was expecting it to. This retrograde is an opportunity to pause, reflect, revise, revisit. There's something you're not fully seeing. Now, I'll give you a personal anecdote for that. Last Mercury retrograde period, or I think it was the first one of this year, actually. When was this? When it was springtime of 2021. And I was in the process of working to transfer into a new job role that required a new contract. And originally they told me I would be a manager. And then they went to switch up the nature of the role so that I wasn't formally a manager with formal manager duties, but instead I was a team lead. There were a bunch of reasons why they had to do this, but it caused the contract and the role to be almost 2 months behind schedule. And you can take this in two ways. You could be frustrated. You could move from the ego and feel like, you wanted to force that particular job title or particular nature. It was this particular job that you wanted. It was this particular house that you were gunning for. It was this deal that needed to close that was going to change everything for you. But turns out I waited until after the Mercury retrograde period and accepted the revision that the energy was calling us to make. And it has worked out better than I could ever imagine, because this job doesn't take too much of my energy away from my passion and purpose and the work I'm supposed to be doing in this world, which is the astrology. So it really did benefit me, but it's almost like those benefits are not always obvious in the moment unless you're holding the right framework of mind. So if you're gunning for a particular house and the deal, if you experience delays, or it falls through, do you take the perspective that you've lost everything? Or do you take the perspective that something better and more aligned is on the way? So I think these are sort of the functions of Mercury retrograde periods. If you have a writing project, if you have a piece of work, a media project that you're working on that suddenly it seems like you need to scrap the whole idea and rework it, that's another way in which Mercury retrograde can manifest. And if you cling too tightly to what you expected and what you thought it would originally need to be, and you resist the work and time and energy that would need to be put into making the product better so that you could push the original timeline, you're thinking with your ego instead of with your energy. We have to accept, allow, and surrender and trust that the changes we're being called to make during this time are actually for our benefit. So that's a little bit about Mercury retrograde in general. That applies to all retrograde periods. And so, of course, some other things that I've had happen are, mishaps with your car, a nail in your tire, a delayed flight. Things like this are all possible. And we just can't really control these sorts of things in life. So if you can be awake and aware and prepared, which I believe the purpose of astrology is for us to be awake and aware and prepared, then you're in a better position to say, this is just the Mercury retrograde period. I'm going to let it go because I can't control it. I'm not going to work myself up into a tizzy. I'm not going to get stressed. I'm just going to handle it. And you can hold a space and container of joy a little bit easier from this frame of mind. So, like I said, we're going into the final retrograde period for Mercury this year, starting September 26th. And we'll be in the sign of Libra. So this is going to be an interesting one in the collective energy right now, because Libra has to do with what is fair, what is balanced, what is just. Libra rules justice. And so Mercury retrograde in Libra is going to cause a lot of people to change their minds and to take into account the perspectives of other people that they might not have been considering before. And then they will be motivated to act for justice, for fairness. We've got a couple of aspects happening here at the beginning that I think will really illustrate this very well. And I hope that we can hold the collective energy of peace, because Libra is also about peace. But we have a bit of intensity coming up. So let me just pull up the chart and we'll take a look at it. So right on the first day of this retrograde period, we've got some pretty intense energy to start, right? Let's see, we've got Mercury heading retrograde, and it forms a T-square right out of the gate with Eris and Aries and Pluto and Capricorn, which are both retrograde at the same time. This is a super powerful energy. Many of you might have watched my Great Awakening video where I spoke about the US's Pluto return in Capricorn, which is happening right now. The United States is going through its Pluto return. Pluto being the planet of death and transformation. Pluto here is causing us to reevaluate what needs to die, what needs to be reborn, and what needs transformation. And Pluto, its native association is with Scorpio, and Scorpio is concerned with getting down to the root cause, getting down to the truth of the matter. What is true? It's very keen and observing and discerning. The key word here is discerning. So Mercury's retrograde squaring Pluto is a suggestion that there will be some intensity, maybe confusion around how we've been manipulated, how information has been manipulated, how the truth has been manipulated. But a sudden reframing of our perspective with this retrograde in Libra helps us to see things in a new way. But of course, it's going to be challenging experiences that give us this discerning, because that T-square here, all the red in the chart that you see, these are challenging aspects that bring intense, challenging experiences. And the purpose ultimately is to inspire action. To inspire action. So what is Eris? Eris is a dwarf planet. It was originally considered the 10th planet in the solar system, but it was demoted to a dwarf planet. Eris is the sort of street fighting energy. It's very similar to Mars in a lot of ways, but she's kind of rebellious. She's an energy that wants to fight for what is right. And so whatever her moral conflictions are at the moment, she's going to take to the streets about it. She's going to be loud. And we've had this ongoing square between Eris here in Aries, which is, we were all born under this energy. It's very slow moving transit. So in Aries, this is about the self and the identity and the opinions that you have, the will that you want to see in the world, and exerting on it, fighting for it, standing up for what you believe, standing up for who you are, taking action for what you believe and who you are. That's what Eris and Aries is all about. And squaring Pluto here this entire year has been all about the power issues, the control issues. In Capricorn, it's about the top-down hierarchies of society and the way these things are being transformed, the death and rebirth process of the top-down hierarchy in society, motivated by the street fighting people, right? Motivated by the people who are rebelling against the system, protesting against the system and the structures that be. And they're working together through action in the, action-oriented cardinal signs. Libra and Aries are cardinal signs. So is Capricorn. All of these, it's a T-square in the cardinal signs. Cardinal meaning sort of attracting crisis, but being very adept at responding to it, taking action to respond to it. These two forces together, I think you know where I'm going here. Libra being concerned with justice and fairness. Right off the gate with this Mercury retrograde period here, people's minds will be changed, and then they will be motivated to act with a discerning eye to create more justice in society. But we'll see a lot of intense experience, of course, a lot of fighting energy here, because as we proceed on, the sun and Mars, you can see here, they're nearing a close conjunction. So the sun in Libra obviously is concerned with justice as well, but conjunct Mars, and the sun and Mars will be dancing together for a while now, for several months. They're going to be very close together. And this conjunction will kick off a 2.5-year cycle, where what we see at this time sort of informs the next 2.5 or so years. And Mars is that Aries planet, that planet of willpower and action and standing up. It's that fighting energy again. So we've got a lot of intense masculine energy here. A lot of intense masculine energy, and the sun is related to our purpose and what gives us life and energy, and what will be illuminated in society are these themes of justice and fairness and equality. Now, of course, you can also see we've got grand trines building as well right off the gate at the beginning of this Mercury retrograde period. And it's the Sun as well as Mars forming a trine with the North Node in Gemini and Saturn in Aquarius. So Saturn is the planet of responsibilities. It rules Capricorn as well as Aquarius in traditional astrology. So this is sort of where the energy this year comes from in terms of what are our responsibilities to the collective, right? That's Aquarius. It's about the collective. It's about humanity. It's about working for the greater good. And Saturn is enforcing structures, rules, dogma, restriction, based on dogmatic beliefs that claim science is the root, right? Because science is another Aquarian-ruled ideology. Saturn ultimately is about responsibilities. And so it's been a part, obviously, of that Uranus-Saturn square this entire year, which has been causing us to sort of push and pull against desiring freedom and liberation and feeling restricted and limited by the responsibilities we feel, have, or are being told to have for society. In a grand trine with the North Node in Gemini this year, that's all about the direction we're moving with new ideas and perspectives in society. At the collective level, this is responsible for the manipulation of truth through censorship, the prominent role of media in society the past 18 months, and the influence of society to have to communicate in new ways. It's obviously a disruption to the idea of community in the first place. But in personal astrology, the North Node represents the direction that you are moving, your purpose-led path and the intention of this incarnation. So in a grand trine here with the Sun, Mars, North Node, and Saturn, this is about standing up for society. This is about being responsible to take the action you need to take for justice and what is fair and what is right, and also what is true. What is true. So a lot of this energy is related to the dismantling, obviously, of the structures that be today, like we mentioned here with this T-square energy to Pluto and Capricorn. And so the right way to take advantage of this energy collectively is to understand that, well, and personally as well, your unique role here is to harmonize both this T-square and the grand trine. Something about your purpose and the path of this incarnation is deeply, powerfully related to shining a light on what is true and taking the responsibility necessary to stand up for and act on behalf of and fight for morals, convictions, values that you believe will create more peace, justice, and equality in the world. That's what this energy is all about here. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. It can be dicey, right? Because Eris is a fighting energy. Mars is a fighting energy. I think it's really balanced well by the fact that Libra wants peace, and it wants to consider the well-being of other people too. It wants to make decisions on behalf of other people. That's what Mars and Libra is all about. Libra's rather indecisive, but and so it's challenging placement for Mars because it's the detriment. Mars is at its detriment here, but where we will see action being taken is on behalf of other people, because Libra is concerned with making sure everyone's needs are met. So there's challenge here, definitely. We'll see at the collective level more truth revealed, more fighting on behalf of the truth that is revealed. People taking a stand, right? People taking to the streets to take a stand. That's exactly what we're going to see. As we move on a little bit further into the transit, we'll see a cardinal grand cross as well, just momentarily. This is a brief energy that is made by the moon. The moon moves very quickly, so this is not going to be a huge force, but I would say that, definitely right still at the very beginning of this retrograde period, as we transition into October, we're going to be feeling a lot of desire to take initiative. to start something new. And this is building towards the new moon, right? So here we're going to be identifying what it is exactly we feel we need to do, or the action that we need to take in order for us to sort of show up in alignment with our integrity, our responsibility that we owe to the collective on behalf of those morals, values, justice, truth, fairness. All of this deeply related to how Mercury retrograde is going to bring about a change of mind. Something about the past comes back around when Mercury goes retrograde. And it causes us to see things in a new way. And it's not without confusion. It, of course, causes confusion until we channel in that intuition, that moon energy that helps us to understand what we need to do. So we'll have that briefly here on September 30th. We've got that new moon. We'll talk about that in a different video. I can't even crack open that can of worms at this time, but I think another notable point in the Mercury retrograde transit is October 9th. We've got a lot of really powerful energy here. The Sun, Mercury, and Mars are all conjunct at the same degree, as well as we've got Venus in an exact opposition to the North Node. Venus is about what we value. Of course, it's the planet of relationships, it's the planet of love, but ultimately, Venus is what we value. In Sagittarius, it's concerned with the higher philosophies, wisdoms, beliefs. What do we value in regard to these things? Do we believe in something higher? Do we act for those things? Do we allow a change of mind? That's a sign of growth. Or do we resist that for ego, right? So on this day, we're going to be working still with the energy of new information coming in, having to integrate it, having to reconsider what we value, a change in what we value, having to reconsider what we value, I think is the key word here. And then, of course, we have to integrate that. That's what an opposition is. We have to integrate that change in value with our purpose, what we're supposed to be doing, which will inspire, undoubtedly, action. That's what Mars conjunct the Sun will be here, and its involvement with Mercury on this day. And ultimately, the message that I want to give about this energy is that while I am expecting a great deal of intensity from now until the end of the year and 2022 and beyond, we'll talk more about that. But what I am expecting, of course, is something about this in our personal lives is ultimately going to work out for the greater good, because persistent throughout the entire month, throughout the entire period here, is a trine to Jupiter. So sign-based the entire month, pretty close orb the entire month. Of course, it's not exact here at the exact time of this conjunction, but that trine to Jupiter is what I believe will help ensure that we are going to have a positive outcome here. But it's also going to expand on those themes, right? It's going to be very, very much so the focus of this month, I think, at the collective level. And then in your personal life, whatever comes up, let's refer back to the message I gave right at the beginning. You must trust that it is working out for the best case scenario, because Jupiter is the great benefic. Jupiter it works to bring good fortune, positive outcome, and growth and expansion and evolution of your consciousness, right? So we have to flow with that, and it's going to require a great deal of surrender and laying down the ego in order to allow our minds to be changed about something, right? So, that's what I'm seeing here for this Mercury retrograde period. If you are looking for a bit of a more personalized forecast by sign, I did write up on the Dream Journal, which is my astrology blog, a forecast for the Mercury retrograde energy, specifically by sign, just a quick blurb about which houses this is hitting for you based on sign. So you can check out that blog to see your sun, moon, and rising sign, to see where Mercury is kind of retrograding, activating the houses in your chart, so you can see maybe where you might experience some of that confusion, change of mind, delay with projects. issues with travel, those sorts of things, you'll be able to get a keen eye of how that might show up for you based on the house placement, which you can do by reading my Mercury Retrograde blog on the Dream Journal and check your big three signs. So I hope that this is a helpful forecast for you. Good luck through the Mercury retrograde season. I'm looking forward to this period. And maybe the last thing I should say is that if you are a Mercury retrograde natal baby, meaning you were born under a Mercury retrograde period, this will typically be a time where your mental faculty sort of comes back online. So that's about 20% of the population. And again, I just want to close by saying the fear mongering around Mercury retrograde, I don't subscribe to it. There is 20% of the population that will be feeling really good during this time. But if you just embrace the season and stop trying to force outcomes, things will work out for all of us in a very magical way. So move from a place of integrity, values, and responsibility this month. That's the be-all, end-all message of this transit. All right, with energy, Sarah.